Good morning, Houston, Texas. How are you all doing today? Welcome back to the Patriots Den. I am your host, Patrick Prudhomme. I'm here with my wonderful, brilliant co-host who finally escaped the establishment today, Brian Fuentes. And folks, we got a special guest with us here as well.
Josh Posey, husband of Cassandra Gonzalez Posey, running for Waller ISD School Board.
Awesome. So, folks, that kind of gives you a little hint on what's to come in the show. One more update. Folks, this is the last show before we go into the 100-day spectacular that we've been talking about all year. So I hope y'all are ready. 100 days of the Trump administration. We already told y'all what was going to happen. We're going to bring out the kazoo orchestra. It's going to be a big party, and just stay tuned and be ready, be excited, be happy. Brian, you ready?
Amazing. I'm really looking forward to it. We might even have to go get ourselves a little gold-plated kazoo, frankly.
I like that. I like that. You think the government will fund that extra?
Elon. I heard if you talk to Elon enough on Twitter, because not that many people like him right now, he'll give you money.
That's what I heard.
So I think if you play nice with him a little bit on X, he might give us a little bit of money.
Maybe Doge has some savings over for the golden kazoos.
Yeah.
Maybe. We'll even bring my best friend, as you all know, a man after my own heart, Robert Francis, on. God bless you, Robert. I know you're out there watching. Our biggest fan and our biggest supporter, Robert Francis. To the people that are still like, who is Robert Francis? It's Beto O'Rourke, people. He's a big fan of the show. Stop it. Folks, this morning, a little rough, but we're here. We made it. Last night, Prime Timers, my flag football team, we won our championship in the flag football tournament. Blew them out. Amazing. The last time we were in the championship, we lost to the team that we beat yesterday. Victory, it just was a little better. A little revenge tour that we were on. How about it, right? But, folks, I think that's it for this morning. For my announcements, I don't think I have anything else. I don't know.
Really? Nothing else happened this week that's pretty big?
Trying to think. Hold on. Give me a second.
How's this? Wait. Who has risen?
Folks, I hope you all... Folks, I hope you all enjoyed your Easter Resurrection Sunday, right? What a weekend that was. I know that was. I think we kind of talked about it last show. We moved into this one, right? But that was great, spending time with family and just really remembering the day and what it truly represents. That was a good one. I like that. So, I think that's it now.
Yeah, J.D. Vance killed someone though.
The Pope, J.D. Vance, the last person who's Pope. So now we got the meme of J.D. Vance is out here killing folks. So we have that. I'm not Catholic, so I don't really know what the next phases in that is and what, they do there. But I have a friend that, he's going down there. So, I guess we'll keep watch on that and keep everyone updated if, you're following that on what's happening. Other than that, okay, now I think that's it.
I think should be a little funny note to add to that, somewhat somber update.
Oh, we love the sobriety.
I heard, I don't know if this is real or not. I think it is, though. Apparently, the Dalai Lama secretly canceled his meeting with J.D. Vance.
I saw that.
You saw that too?
Maybe J.D. Vance is out here. Maybe he should give the Clintons a visit. Let's see who wins that battle. That one will be one for the record book, huh? How about that? All right, folks, that's it. Okay, let's jump straight into this, folks. As you all know, here on the Patriots Den, one of the big things that we like to talk about, one of the big things that we like to cover, because me and Brian are both college students. Me and Brian both are in Generation Z. Me and Brian, our whole goal is, letting people in our generation know that there's still hope, there's still a chance, and we know that we can't necessarily do that without the people in front of us as well. And so we've been talking about education, raising children. We've been talking about the schools. We've been talking about that all year, right? Coming from, two different backgrounds, two different things of just what this generation needs. And what we've come down to is education is the most important. We had a whole show about education and what was happening in the homes and in the school systems and the difference between them. So our guest today, Josh Posey. Said that last name right?
Yeah, you got it right.
Awesome. Sometimes I mess up on the last names. Justin will tell you that. I can tell you all about that. So we have Josh Posey here, and his wife is running for school board in Waller ISD. Waller ISD. That is a district in Texas, folks. But because I'm not, too good at geography, well, I'm good at geography, but not too good at geography. Josh, go ahead and tell the people what exactly encompasses Waller ISD.
Man, so Waller ISD is enormous, not in student population, but in land size. And we start north of 99 next to Tomball ISD on Muskey Road. We go all the way down 99 to just north of 529 and then take it way out in the sticks. In fact, we're about 5 square miles less than the size of Houston ISD, which is why we're one of the real fastest growing districts in the state. Every district believes that's what they are. But we have neighborhoods coming in on 4 different sides of us. And that's going to take up all that real estate. Pretty soon, we're going to have suburbs everywhere, and our little 10,000 student population is going to explode. We'll be the size of Cy-Fair in 15 or 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, but our land mass is just enormous, and I've been the one putting up signs. So I can tell you, it takes a long time to drive from one side to the other.
Yeah, I believe I've spoken at a rally in Waller. It was a Trump train rally out there in Waller, and we were driving, and I said, "Where are we? Where are we?" I said, "This is not."
Store.
It was just straight dirt road, nothing there, and I said, "There's no way people are. No, there's no school. There's nothing. There's like 2-3 houses I've seen the entire time. No one lives here. No one lives here. So that's impressive. Impressive.
That's where you're wrong. The thing is, you're going through there in a car. You see, back there, it's sticks. You have to go by horse.
Yeah, when you get on the horse, you can see over the weeds. Yeah.
We all know what happened last time. I got on a horse.
I heard the banks were actually behind that horse.
I found out that horse is no longer with us.
Really?
Those banks are no longer with us. So I'm winning right now, Brian. The establishment, you've yet to win that one. So,
maybe we'll get through it together. On the 100th
absolutely
day.
Next week, folks. Stay tuned. So, I know school board elections oftentimes are the least voted in. That's number one. They're the least voted in. They're the least talked about. But if you're a parent, it's also the most important election on your ballot. So can you just explain to the viewers here and to me and Brian exactly what power is held by that school board and by the trustees?
Yeah, so your local school board has immense power and authority. Now, number one, they get to select on which curriculum the school district is going to buy. Mm-hmm. So that'll tell you if you want a curriculum that's got crazy stuff in it that you might find in Houston ISD, or if you want stuff that's super conservative that the rest of Texas might value.
Right.
Your school board is going to be the ultimate decision maker on that. They also set the tax rate. So your budget for your school has to come from somewhere. It comes from property taxes and some state funding. But they establish your tax rate. So if you don't want your school district to grow their budget 10x every year and raise your tax rate accordingly, mm-hmm. then you should be cautious about that. And then finally, they set policy. And the 3 big things that they do: money, curriculum, policy. So if you have a problem with your school district, and a lot of districts have problems with behavioral issues and discipline in the classroom, and if you want to solve that problem, your board has the power to establish a unique policy for your district that can empower your teachers to crack down on disruptions, on kids acting out. They can do that policy on almost anything that they want to. And so when it comes to the next generation, our children are in these institutions more than they're at home most of the time. And the school board oversees the operation of that institution. Now, the only employee that they have purview over is the superintendent. But that's a pretty powerful position because the superintendent is the administrator that runs the rest of the district. So they tell the superintendent what their goals are, what they need to accomplish, how they're going to go about that, and then the superintendent is supposed to jump to all of that. So it's immensely powerful. You also mentioned that it's very sparsely voted in. And, I think in Waller County, Trump carried like 50,000 votes.
Yeah.
I'm expecting 1,500 people to show up in this election. Now, so when you look at a county like Waller, which we're in 2 counties, by the way, Waller and Harris, but when you look at Waller County specifically, we're like 72% for Trump, but in a school board race, that doesn't matter because there's so few people that vote that you can find 1,400 Democrats to vote in that, and if the conservatives stay home, then, are we really representing our community appropriately?
Yeah.
We talked about that with the midterms, how the Democrats were like, oh, we won the Supreme Court. Da, da, da. Yeah, I said when conservatives don't vote, the Dems win. we saw that in the 2024 election. Yeah, Trump won, but we need to really highlight something. Not only did Trump won, but we won down ballot. We won popular vote. The Republican base was actually motivated to get out and vote. And when we were motivated to get out and vote, forget what we saw at the presidential level. We took the House, we took the Senate, we were able to win in those state races as well. The message of getting out to vote is so important, and I feel as if I'm working on a campaign right now of someone in Ohio.
All right.
And people are like, why are you running on a campaign in Ohio? It's what I do. And they're running for city council. And all they need, according to the math, the calculations, to win the primary is 50 votes.
Yeah.
50 votes. I just need 50 people to put my name on the ballot, and I win. Because that's the most votes ever in that city's primary history.
Yeah.
50? I can knock on 50 doors in a day.
Yeah.
So why is it that we're not seeing the importance of these elections? Yet, when you lose the election, you're the loudest person saying, this is not the education I want for my kid. Okay, well, you had the opportunity to fix it. It was given to you, and what'd you do? You stayed at home.
Yeah, I'll tell you about that. We've knocked 4,000 doors so far, which is a monster of a lift considering how rural it is.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, my house, I live on a street that's a mile long. I have 12 neighbors. So, I mean, and everyone has a gate that locks, right? So you can't even get to the door. So that we personally knocked 4,000 doors is a pretty big lift. And in that, we met 3 people, 4,000 doors, 3 people that knew there was an election coming. So your question is, how do people not even get involved? Part of it is just not even knowing. I think there's a bill right now. Hillary Hickland, representative out of HD 55, has sponsored the bill or written the bill, authored the bill. It says that a ruling entity, I'm going to use that language, not what's in the bill, but any governing entity has to post notices on the landing page of their websites for meetings, elections, all of these things. Because if you go to Waller's School District's website right now, you got to click about 5 different links to find out that there's an election.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right. So, because Waller has a pretty high graduation rate, I think it's like at 95%.
Yeah, I would say it's a little below that, but I'm not
maybe a little below 95. I know it's above 70. It's above 70.
But to be fair, though, that really, at least once again, my personal experience.
Exactly, and that's why I want to bring that up. And, so the question is, your wife is running, and I'm assuming from everything that I've read, everything that I've researched, she's not the incumbent.
No. We're taking on a 36-year incumbent who's seeking another 3 years on the board.
See, and that's why I bring this up, is she's not an incumbent, which means that if someone wants to run against an incumbent of 36 years, that means that this person sees an issue. This person says, wait a minute, you've been there for 36 years. As my favorite president says, it's time for we the people to say, you're fired. You got to get out of here. You can't do this anymore. And so now the question goes to, this is a fast-growing district. This is a district that, clearly is involved on certain levels, but they're not fully involved all the way down. And you got a person, I'm not sure if it's a guy or woman, that's been there for 36 years. 36 years. Anybody that can stand and say, I've been in my job for 36 years, you go, oh, this person's got some, experience.
Yeah.
So how does that conversation go? Like at the dinner table, she goes, I think I want to run against this guy that's been in that position for 36. How does that happen?
Yeah. So the incumbent, been there forever, literally been in office since my wife was born. That's a good one-liner there. He's a deacon in one of the local churches. He's beloved. He watched everybody's dog while they went on vacation while they were growing up, taught Sunday school for him. It makes no sense that anybody would ever want to challenge this guy. Right? Except it's a three-way race. And he's a very experienced man in life, and there's a much younger person running in that race. And I think she was probably the catalyst for us to jump into this race, or for my wife to jump in, because the third person that's in the race rented a home. Well, I can't say that she did. I haven't seen the lease agreement. She uses an address for a home that was for rent before school started. Mm-hmm. She put her kids in the district over the summer. So she has now decided to run for school board, but no one's ever seen her. She hasn't shown up to anything. She doesn't do anything around the district. But her husband, who's an attorney in Houston, hasn't moved his voting history or his voting registration address to their new home. So either they don't cohabitate or something weird is going on.
Right.
And she happens to identify in a couple of different ways with a large voting block in Prairie View. And that happens to be in our school district. Mm-hmm. And so my wife looked at this and said, we know the numbers that can be produced by students at Prairie View. We don't know if they're the best stakeholders for our children when it comes to making decisions on who gets to lead our school district. Mm-hmm. Not for any other reason that they're all college students. Right? And so if she were to activate that, do we think that a 36-year incumbent would have the energy to bring enough votes to overwhelm that?
No.
And we don't think that he would. Now, he's got a great phone tree, I can tell you that from experience. But we believe that our experience in campaigning and voter targeting and data analysis would allow us to drive out enough numbers to counter the third person in the race. Mm-hmm. And we knew that we would have to take on this stalwart and this incumbent, but we offered to sit down, and we actually brought an olive branch in the beginning. And before our filing was complete, we offered to sit down and negotiate peace, because we wanted to cheerlead the incumbent into retirement, because he's done a great job. He's literally been on the board since there was more cows than people in our district. And, he's got us to this point, and that's awesome. But now my wife is immensely qualified, and she has experience in some of our deficient areas in the district where she can be a huge asset. And so maybe it's a great opportunity to pass the torch and allow someone to take us even further, because we believe every student can be successful, and there's a lot in Waller that are not meeting that. So we offered to sit down and have that conversation and what that would look like, and the response we got was, go to hell, I'll die in office. I'm summarizing. He didn't exactly. But he did, the die in office part did come through. And so we said, look, if that's the way it's going to be, then all right, I'll shake your hand and good luck to you, because we're going to go campaign. And that's where we've been. We picked our voters, we went after them, and it's been an uphill fight because of the allegiance that the old guard has. But the numbers so far during early voting are favorable. I think that if we can just catch a break on one of these days, we may take a lead, and it may work out. But God only knows what happens.
Ryan?
I mean, it's like you said, it's very school board races are a lot tighter than the bigger ones, because less people turn out. And I personally have a little bit of experience in politics. I'm not as much experience as Patrick over here. How long have you been doing this for again?
I have been in this since 2016.
Yeah.
Yep. So like 4 times as much time as me. I've been here for 2 years at best. Mm-hmm. But one thing I do know, though, just from what I've learned, is door knocking is one of the best ways to win a race.
Direct voter contact.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because when you can see the people who are you are voting for effectively talk to you, or / have a representative talk to you, it really shows you that, hey, they care about me. Mm-hmm. They're representing me. And it's not just a piece of paper or a little email or a text message saying, oh, don't forget to vote XYZ. Mm-hmm. So the fact that y'all are door knocking, I mean, frankly, I think that's a really great sign to see that y'all are, politically versed. Because there's a lot of politicians, especially here in Texas, that don't believe in the benefits of door knocking.
Yeah.
Ooh, nice.
Jinx.
Yep. But my question is, are any of the other candidates door knocking as well, or what's their methods of running the election, or is that not something you?
No. So the other lady in the race, who we don't ever see, she ran some Facebook ads, mostly made with graphics from ChatGPT in their cool font that they make, so it's easy to identify.
Right.
we haven't seen her. She didn't turn in any financial reports, nothing. And then the incumbent has not been going door to door. Instead, he was targeting the fish fries that organizations were putting on leading up to Easter. And he has been utilizing his phone tree network and then letting other people go about countering false rumors, putting words in our mouth. Yeah. So it's been cool on Facebook to watch that campaign unwind on there with lots of negative spin. It'd be cool if he would, at some point say that he didn't condone some of it, but we wouldn't expect anyone to be in politics and be polite.
Absolutely.
Right. But that's the major method of the incumbent is relational, whereas we're doing mostly outreach, and it's going to be interesting to kind of see where that goes, because I think we've executed pretty well. We targeted our voters. We knew how many votes we needed. We knew where we were going to get those votes. We have door knocked almost all of our targeted voters. We have targeted rural voters that we can't door knock with mailers. We have had great success at those doors. 75% of our surveys report favorability, whereas only 4% are opposed to us. Right? I think that's a pretty good number, but in reality, that's probably like 40% support. These people at the door making decisions. But over that, we've got almost 250 signs in front of homes right now, and if I only need 900 votes to win, that's a really good sign.
Yeah.
Really good sign if the math works out, right? But I've never applied this kind of tactic to such a small race in a mix of suburban and rural homes. So we're going to be eager to see what the voter turnout looks like, and we continue to encourage everyone that hasn't voted to come out and vote with direct voter contact. And we're working all those basics and hoping that the ground game is successful, because we've seen it work.
Right.
So, follow-up question to that then. That 900 figure you gave, I don't know if that was an exact figure or an estimate or just a number you just gave out for the sake of it. But kind of following with, once again, the little bit of politics that I do know. The figure I'm usually that gets thrown about is around 3% of the voter base is what you want to target, because that's what decides the election effectively. Was that 900 or 3%, or what figure are you going for?
So this is like the third election in Waller ISD history, well, in modern history. So like the last 15 years, this is like the third election that's been contested. Wow. There's an election every May. Wow. To put that in perspective. So when I go back and I look at the turnout analysis, I have to go back to like the 90s when we don't even have like data on it.
Yeah.
Right? And have to PIR that stuff from the school district because they were operating in a back room of a building not even through a county at that point. So when I throw out the number 900, I'm looking at the two data points that I have for voter turnout for this election and extrapolating for registered voter growth. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that without an additional influx of voters, we would normally expect about 1,500 voters to show up in this election. If you cut that in half, because you need 50% to win, right? We're looking at 750. I put some on top of that. If I can hit 900 votes, then I think I can bring it home. That's the simple math. Now, the real math is different than that, because we know from November that Prairie View can throw out 2,000 votes. And I know from 2022 that the network of the incumbents can produce about 1,200 votes. So that puts my number a little bit higher than
900.
Simple math.
Yeah.
Right? Which is why we've been so aggressive at door knocking.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a whole campaign side to math that in data analysis,
right.
You're aware of it, but you're aware of some of it, and it's a whole different world. Right, but we've been applying what we know, what we've experienced, working from the ground up on campaigns, and managing all this stuff. I'm my wife's campaign manager. If you read Facebook, you'll find that the Republican Party of Texas or Harris County, or I don't know, maybe even Elon Musk or Trump himself is the one that's running my wife's campaign. But really, our kitchen table and my laptop that's on the floor behind me, that's our brain. And it's just from our experience what we're doing. and our resources, and we've done the whole thing on a super slim budget, and we're pretty proud of the campaign that's being run. I think it's a feather in our cap to say that maybe she can balance a $7 million deficit of a budget in the school district.
So, good question. When in May is the election going to happen?
May 3rd. Right now, May 3rd is Saturday.
Wow.
That's when the election is, and up until the 29th is early voting. So if you're in Harris County, you can vote 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at anywhere in Harris County, but Hockley Community Center is the closest thing to our district. Waller County, you got to know where you are because the line goes right through the middle of town. Waller County has 3 different voting locations on the north side of the county. You've got the Civic Center, you got Prairie View A&M with the Waller County Community Center there, and then you have Road and Bridge in Hempstead, 8 to 5. So if you work, you got to go during lunch or go on a Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Man,
Let's
2 weeks away.
It is.
Let's get some graphics and stuff made then and post that out for them so people can know to, get out and vote.
Yeah.
So that's what we'll do after this. I have your wife's number and I'll get your number as well. You send me those times and then we'll get those graphics made and we'll get those out because it's important that people know where to vote, when to vote, how to vote.
Yeah.
I think.
And why to vote.
Why? Yeah. And what are you voting for? And like you said with the block walking, a lot of people don't know, but my very first job in politics where I got my first, was block walking. I was block walking for a candidate who won, and I said, wait a minute, I kind of did a little something. I kind of did a little something there because it was my segment of the county that pushed that candidate over. And so I know that block walking, door knocking, those are the things that make the difference in those races, especially in those large but small counties. They're large but small. Everyone knows everyone. You say, oh, it's a big county. Yeah, but when you look at a race like this, it's an everyone knows everyone kind of race.
Yeah, people go to vote for personal reasons.
Exactly.
Right? You get a text message and there's no personal hook to it. What do? Move on.
Move on.
Right? But if there's a personal hook to it, you're like, man, that's a valid point.
Yeah.
I need to show up.
Yeah.
And so I love the fact that Waller County is one of those counties when it comes to politics that I love. It's what drives me because you have that college base. Then you have that rural vote that's out here. And then you have that new upcoming suburban kind of vote. You have 3 different voter groups, right? And this is what I love. So this past election cycle, I worked with Kerry Lake, Tim Sheehy, Eric Hovde. I worked with Ted Cruz. And my job was more on like the internet kind of side of things.
Yeah.
And so I pushed out different kinds of content, but for the same person, each content going after tailored for a different voting group. So when you're on social media and you see an ad and you're like, wait, somebody just posted one very similar to this. That's me. I'm one of those people that's kind of pushing it out, right? And the way we did that is we would break it down to news articles in the town. Okay, what kind of people are reading this article? Okay, we're going to make an article like this, but for this candidate. Bam, we put that out. Okay, now for the people that are in this voter black. Okay, what are they looking? Okay, this is what they like. Bam, we're going to put clip of him doing this. Bam, bam, boom. Send that out. So I love the 3 different divisions of Waller County. I'm about to paint a picture here for the people watching online that are like, I want to get involved in politics. I'm about to help you out. The people that are running a campaign, I'm about to help you out. This is how you win your election. You host an event. But when you're hosting that event, have 3 different flyers for that one event. I went and did we did a Trump rally in College Station. College Station, there's 2 people. There's the college people that are in, the college kids, and then you have like some older folks that are mostly retired, Yeah. That's it. Those are only 2. So what do you think we did? We had 2 different flyers. One was very appealing to the college folk, and the other one was very appealing to the other folk.
Mm-hmm.
One flyer mentions a Trump train and all that, and they come in, Then you have the other one, the college kids, they're just there. They're just there. We had a Turning Point USA booth out there. Oh, yeah. So with this campaign, something like school board, you're saying, okay, well, how does that work? Here's how you do it. You're a parent.
Oh, yeah.
You're a parent.
4 kids.
4.
Yeah.
Well, how old is the oldest?
He's a graduating senior.
He comes home. He says, Dad, look at this. He shows you something. How intrigued are you from the first child showing you something?
Yeah.
Right. Second child comes up to you, shows you the same thing, and you're okay. Third child comes up to you, and you're like, okay, what is this?
That's right.
Right? If they're all 3 intrigued in the exact same thing, you go, you peek a little bit, right?
Yeah.
That's what you do.
Say, man, who reached all 3 of my kids with that?
Exactly.
And is the 4th one walking up with it right now? Yeah.
Right? So when you have these trends and everything that's going around, that's how you do it. When you have a school board election, you target the people that are most affected by a school board, the students. And you get students intrigued on this. How do you get students intrigued on this? This right here, we talk about it all the time. It's the greatest thing, but the worst thing at the same time. Many people are going to be like, his wallpaper is a picture of himself. Yes, it is. Get over it.
Advertising.
Advertising, right? Yeah. So the question is, when it comes down to the school district, when it comes down to the school, when it comes down to the kids of the school, what issues are important to them? This is something that's always overlooked. As a person goes, that child probably doesn't know what's best, but you'd be surprised. As someone who's been in politics since 2016, that's me, and that means I was in politics in middle school. The amount of kids that are actually invested in politics but are often told at home, sit down, you don't know what you're talking about, it pushes a lot of people in my generation away. You get to start voting at what age? 18. 18-year-olds are seniors in high school. That is a voting block in school board elections.
Yes, it is.
That many people forget about. Has, your wife put together a campaign strategy to target that as well? Because that's how I was kind of brought in.
Yeah. We have a little bit of targeting on graduating seniors that are of age to vote. We have a small cache of that. It's not been the low-hanging fruit that we chased.
Oh, absolutely.
We're a little more broad stroke than that at the moment, probably because of budgetary needs. But we're not running digital ads, which would be a huge way to target students, right? You run some Instagram ads, and you can start really reeling in kids. Of course, what you're talking about, you have to have multiple exposures before you get your first click and response, right? But that's why they're so cheap, is because it takes so many hits to get a response. But we have a lot of support. My wife's been very active in the school district for the last 4 years while my son's been at the high school, and my son's a pretty prominent kid, and so we have some good relationships there that are helping us drive some of those young voters. But I don't have any flyers that circulating. But if you can't put a flyer on the campus,
right?
You got to put it in their hand. But it's a good point. If I had a little extra capital, it would probably be something that I could really dive into. But we've had to back up because of the micro budget and target things. And really, where we have driven this is we've taken this nonpartisan race and made it partisan. And that's kind of been our campaign strategy. Is my wife's the only Republican endorsed candidate.
Yeah,
she's endorsed by both counties and the state party, right? And so when you present that, most voters have a knee-jerk reaction, which is, well, I'm down with that,
right?
But some staff don't like that very much, and so the sitting board members didn't appreciate that very much, because then now they can't endorse the guy that's not endorsed
by the Republican. Yeah,
that's right.
Which is why I'm so against nonpartisan.
Yeah, I think
boards,
Steve Toth has a bill to make school boards a partisan position.
Because politics is partisan. You can sit here and run and be like, oh, I'm nonpartisan. That's fine and dandy. But and this was our topic last month. We kind of highlighted the difference in between what is a liberal and what is a conservative.
Yeah.
And conservatives have a belief in something other than themselves. It's not all self-centered. And when a conservative goes and votes, they're not just voting based on what affects them. but they're thinking about their kids, they're thinking about their families, they're thinking about their wallet, they're thinking about their pocket, they're thinking about their country.
That's right.
They're thinking about something else other than themselves. And so something such as a school board, your job is literally to vote not for yourself. It's literally to vote for something other than
You're
yourself.
representing so many other people.
Exactly. So if you are a part of an ideology that hates the idea of having a belief in something other than yourself, and even then they have no respect for themselves.
Yeah.
So there is no such thing as nonpartisan. For people at home that are like, oh, no, there's no such thing as that. It's not. We see it, and every single time you have a nonpartisan school board, what happens? You get into a situation where you're like, wait a minute, there's these three people, and they're kind of groups up together, and whatever they say kind of goes. Why do you think that is? It's because it's partisan. They're probably all a part of the same party. They're probably all a part of the same idea. The question is that faction voting for or against you as a parent?
Yeah. Maha Rushy, I'm a Rush baby, Rush Limbaugh, used to say when people would call in and say, well, I'm an independent, he would say, well, that just means you're a Democrat that hasn't recognized it yet.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you can't say what you are, but you don't want to be labeled as the opposite, then there's not really a middle ground. You just won't recognize it. And that's kind of what we've driven in this. And I had a lady, I handed her a flyer at a park. They were having a big festival last weekend. We were block walking, did another 700 homes, and she looked at me and she said, I handed her a flyer. I'm talking about the school board election. She has no idea it's there. Kids are everywhere at this park. It's great, but I'm wearing a Texans for Trump hat. Right now, I don't wear MAGA hats. I don't do that stuff. But block walking, that's the base I'm trying to excite. So I want to look familiar, especially in rural areas, because people will shoot you if you look like a trespasser. So don't shoot me. I'm a Republican, right? And she looks at my hat. She says, well, I'm not a Trump supporter. And I said, well, that's fine. You don't have to be. This is a nonpartisan race. She said, but you just told me that you're endorsed by Republicans. I said, what we're doing is giving you a courtesy. Now you understand that as an endorsed Republican, we're coming at this with a traditional family values perspective, with a conservative fiscal responsibility here. And we are intending to put families and parents first while we empower teachers to do what they're supposed to do in the classroom. And I said, so it's only fair that we reveal who we really are, who my wife is, by letting you know up front that she's endorsed by these organizations, because she'll be held accountable to what she's telling you here.
Right.
And if you don't agree with those things, then there's somebody else you can vote for. And she was like, oh, well, when you put it that way, it's not so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's about knowing what I tell people all the time, you pay for what you get. If something is being given away, just like on a clearance rack, it's probably because, number one, they're overstocked on it, or there's something wrong with it, right? You're paying for what you get. And so when you have someone who's willing to come out and say, yeah, this is a nonpartisan race, I'm going to be upfront with you. You vote for me. This is what you're going to get, the conservative values. You're going to get those traditional family values. You're going to get somebody who's willing to not only hold myself accountable, that's number one, but you're going to get somebody who's willing to hold teachers and everyone else around them accountable for what they believe in. If you truly believe in something, stand on it. Because if you stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. And so someone who is truly willing to be convicted and stand on, their values is what politics has been needing for a very long time, from the top of the federal level to the very bottom of the city level. You need people who are willing to stand on their values and can admit, okay, I was wrong about this, I was right about this. Someone who's willing to say, you know what, but this is what I'm going to stand on at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And what happens after that, let's see. And if I'm wrong, there it is. But at the end, but you're not afraid to give it a try.
Yeah.
And that's really what that's what I'm hearing from this campaign is you're not scared to just give it a try.
No, in fact, we got a proven record of doing the things that we're campaigning on. And I think it's important that in politics that you don't necessarily go negative, but you contrast your candidate versus the other candidates, right? You have to distinguish yourself from one to the other. And in this endorsement and in our approach of targeting Republicans as a base, what we're doing is establishing an unspoken contrast, right? Because if we're the ones for family values, then what does that mean? What are we trying to say about the other candidates?
Right.
Well, I didn't mention anything about them. But what I can tell you is that 3 years ago, my wife went to the mat to defend against a curriculum that was being brought in. It was approved by the state, the only one. Our school district put together a committee called the School Health Advisory Committee. They're required in every district. If anybody listening right now, pause this, go sign up for your SHAC, SHAC, in your school district, because they set the community standards on all kinds of things. And it's a very influential thing to be a part of if you can do it right. My wife was on that. They passed out credentials for a health textbook that they wanted her to review. Gave her 2 months to review it, along with the other 38 people on the committee. She brought it home. She's sitting on the couch. She's thumbing through it, and she reads this thing about an exercise for students to research where reproductive health clinics in their community are, which ones offer free screenings and free services, and also research what your state laws are about notifying your parents that you're going there or that you've been there. Right? My wife read that to me, and I threw down. I said, this cannot pass. We can't have this. Why would we have this? This is ridiculous. And so we started digging into it even further, and the entire curriculum hinged upon gender identity.
Wow.
It defined biological sex and gender as two completely different things, with gender being a social
construct.
Yeah, I'm going to say construct. The language itself was based on social understandings or something like that, right? But it's constructed based on social understanding. And so it's a social construct. And it had other things in it. It referenced pregnant persons. And we actually ultimately threw down with a Q&A where we got to submit questions in writing for the publisher to answer. And they said, well, pregnant person doesn't refer to pregnant men. It's actually a World Health Organization term, and it's a CDC term that refers to girls and women who get pregnant, because depending on their age, they're not yet a woman, so we have to call them persons. And our response was, I don't know, when a girl reaches the maturity to be able to have children. I think that's when she's considered a woman, right? And I think that someone who teaches science would understand that. It turns out that the State Board of Education this last year reviewed science textbooks, and the same publisher submitted one of theirs. And one of the questions that was brought out of that was, hey, you're using pregnant people in this textbook. Would you modify that to pregnant women in your textbook so we can approve you? And the publisher said, under no circumstances will we do that. And so the state said, that's fine. We're not going to approve you with a contract. So they rejected them, right? And so if it was just about women and age, you would think that they'd have a simple solution. Oh yeah, let me just make this change, and then let me just rake in millions of dollars from school taxpayer money in this contract. But instead, they stood their ideological ground, and go woke, go broke.
Yeah.
Right.
But my wife went to bat with that curriculum, and 2 months later, she came on that committee, and they had their meeting. They called all these experts in from the school district on this committee. They sat down. They called the meeting to order on Zoom. And 13 minutes later, the vote was over with no discussion, and it was 38-1. 38 of our experts said, this is great, let's use it. My wife said, I don't think I like this, it's bad. And so we actually had to go into the school district, and we made an appointment with the lady who oversees a SHAC, and we sat down and we said, look, we're here to help you. Your committee is out of compliance with state law. And they said, how so? So we pointed out seven ways that they're out of compliance with the law. And said, look, in Florida, there was a textbook that was thrown out of a school because 2 years before that, their committee violated the Open Meetings Act. It would really be a shame if we put that to test here in Texas. But if we need to, we're willing to see if our courts want to rule the same way. And they said, you know what? I can't answer any of these questions right now, but I'll call you and tell you what we're going to do. So 2 days later, they called us. They said, after talking to our legal, we are going to reorganize that committee and have another vote. And so they did. And my wife was on the committee again. And this time they had the proper number of parents, because you're supposed to have so many parents and no staffers. And they took a vote again, 15-1. This time they reviewed the entire curriculum in 2 weeks. And it's like a 1,000-page textbook and lots of extra pages. and stuff. I mean, it had even crazier stuff. It talks about using sterile needles for drugs and medications. I don't know what the difference between a medication and a drug is, but needles and drugs are always a bad connotation, right? And I don't want my kids learning about that either. I think that's out of touch. It surveyed kids, said, hey, do you know what you should do if you ever see a gun at your home? Do you know who to talk to about that? Well, this is Texas. What do you mean? If you ever see a gun, hunting season is coming up. Like, of course you're going to see a gun. So it was really out of touch with our community, and that's where we went to bat. And the school board doesn't ever vote no on anything. They vote in unison on almost every vote. Most of it's in a consent agenda. And even the budget amendments, sometimes I tell conservative groups that I talk to, I say, look, if you can look at my school board's agenda and tell me how many budget amendments they just passed in the last meeting, I'll give you $100 out of my pocket. Because it says budget amendment with a parenthesis S at the end. And the minutes read about the same. They won't read the amendments. They just vote on it on a consent agenda. Pretty crazy, right? I have no idea what's going on. But this is the kind of board that they are. They don't know what they're voting on. They don't discuss it. They don't put it out in the open. And so this committee, 15-1, sends it to the board for consideration and approval. So we organized the community. We got a lot of people to push back. We recruited our State Board of Education members, 2 of them, because we're such a big district. We have multiple SBOEs in our district. And both of them came in to talk. One of them actually came and had a breakfast and sat down in private with our board to talk about it. And she was the only no vote on that curriculum at the state level. And she had a conversation with them. After that conversation, they voted unanimously against it, which is very interesting because the rest of the district was pushing back so hard. I had people online telling me that even though I had a screenshot with a page number in the screenshot, and they had the access to go in and look at this themselves, that I was lying about what was in that book. Right? And which is the same thing here in a minute. I'm going to tell you what our reading scores are, what our math scores are. And I'm going to read it from the TEA's website. And I've got people online telling us that it's wrong, that we are lying. And so that was the kind of pushback that we were facing in our district. And we were really grateful that the board voted against it. But to this day, they don't believe that what we said was in there. And in fact, we brought it up on a flyer, on a mailer that we sent to some of our rural voters. We brought up that my wife is a defender of community values, right? And we referenced that. And boy, it set off our district into this outrage. And a lot of teachers picked up their pitchforks and came and tried to roast us because I put a picture of a man with a beer belly, and we photoshopped the word expecting with some little rainbow feet on his belly to make it look like he was a pregnant man. Because that's the twist of the mailer, right?
Yeah.
Is they almost said men can get pregnant, but my wife stopped it.
Yeah.
Right? And they got mad and they said, why didn't you use a real trans person on that mailer? How offensive is it that you had to Photoshop a trans person? Well, time out. Are you saying that you have a picture of a pregnant man?
Yeah.
Because if you got one, send it over here and I'll put it on the flyer right now.
Second of all, are you just... Damn, I had it right there. I was gonna make a joke and everything.
He tried to have a Patrick moment. And it didn't work.
Are you assuming that's not a woman in that picture? Yeah. That's what I would. Ooh. That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
assuming.
You don't know what his pronoun is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't know if that's you know if that's a transgender woman right there or not.
He wanted to say tranny, folks. That's what he wanted to say.
Yeah. So they went to war over that, and man, they were roasting us over that recently. We ended up having a Q&A session where we were getting so many trolls on Facebook that it wasn't even worth communicating on Facebook anymore because, I can only be called a liar so many times.
Right.
But we had a Q&A and said, look, either show up or shut up. And brought people in. You could write your question on a note card. We categorized them. We started asking questions. And my wife answered a lot of questions. Now, some of them were belligerent. Some of them were irrelevant to a school board member. Mm-hmm. A lot of them were gotcha questions. And she stood there toe-to-toe with all these activist teachers from Waller ISD who were more angry that we used a fake pregnant man photo than they are that 54% of our kids can't read on grade level, or that 60
54.
yeah,
That's
or that huge, right?
Yeah, and I
What's
do come
the
from.
graduation.
Well, here's the thing about graduation rate.
Yeah,
A lot of
'cause-
the time, that's not a real indicator of how well kids are performing, because a lot of the time the superintendent is responsible for that graduation rate. So what does he tell? Tell the principal, the teachers, hey, bump these kids up a few grades so they can graduate.
Yeah.
Because I went to public school, Lamar Consolidated, over there in Rosenberg, and it was disgusting. Like, we had a whole meeting with all the seniors because 75% of the people there were not on track to graduate because of how low their grades were. Miraculously, though, by the end of the semester, 99 plus graduated out of our class.
Yeah.
And I think the only reason some of them didn't graduate was probably because of attendance reasons, not because
Yeah.
of their actual grades.
Yeah. So how does a school function once half of the people can't read?
Worse than that, how does society function?
Right.
Imagine not being able to read a ballot.
I have always been against popcorn reading.
Yeah.
We all know what that is. It's where one person reads, okay, then the next person reads. I'm in college.
Yeah.
I am in, political science classes. These are people that want to be lawyers. And we're popcorn reading. And
You're popcorn reading in your classes?
yes. It's because, you're reading the textbook and the professor, he doesn't want to read. He just had his wife, he didn't have the child. His wife, they just brought a beautiful, I don't know what it is, girl or boy. They just brought a beautiful baby into the world. He's tired. Okay? He doesn't even want to be there anymore. So he tells us, hey, guys, let's read this book together, me and you, because I'm tired. And it's always the ones who are the loudest of all. I want to read, and now I'm like, you can't read. Please stop. Stop.
Spare us.
Please.
Yeah.
I am silently reading to my head. I'm 2 pages ahead of you. What do you do? Please. Oh my God. So how does society function? And then it makes me go back and says, okay, wait a minute. I blame 2 people. Number one, I blame, parents for not being involved in their students' education.
Bro, that's where it starts.
That's where it starts. The greatest learning happens at the dinner table.
That's right.
You don't want to get out and vote for school board elections. You don't know what your child's grades are.
You don't know what they did in
don't-
school today, what
right,
they learned about.
what they learned. So you don't know if they can read or not. That's number one. And most of the time, some of the parents can't read. Let's just be honest here.
That's the truth.
I'm not like I tell you all the
there's
time.
people younger than us that already have kids.
Exactly. They're young. They have kids and they can't read. I tell people, I don't care what you record it, post it. I don't really care because it's the truth. You can't read, right? And then you have a district now that's 54%, where the school district can't read. So now, how long has the other guy been? 34 years?
36 years.
36 years, but your district can't read.
Yeah, let me piggyback on that. Somebody said, and that's his fault? I said, well, he's the one in charge. Yeah.
You've been there for 36 years?
Yeah, it didn't have to be this way. We offered an olive branch. We didn't have to talk about responsibilities.
Right.
But regardless of whose problem this is, it's a problem.
Yeah.
And there's a solution. We're neighbors with Tomball. Tomball's like number 14 in the state. We share a border with Katy ISD. They're like number 7 in the state.
Location
We're
ain't the issue.
459th.
So
Now,
location's not the
yeah,
issue.
so let me ask you, like, are the kids that far apart
Right.
in Waller from Tomball and Katy?
No.
No. What's the difference in our community that makes our kids perform so less
Yeah.
or so low, right? And I'm not saying that testing is the end-all, be-all, because, I could barely pass an SAT in high school, but I almost qualified for some pretty outrageous stuff on other tests.
Right.
And so, there's gamesmanship to some of that stuff, and it doesn't measure IQ or capabilities. I don't even think that college is the end-all, be-all, because a lot of people are successful without college.
Yeah, trade school,
A lot of people are
entrepreneurship.
not, but a lot of people are. And so we only have these test scores to judge people by.
Yeah.
And when our students are that far behind, in fact, the teachers were yelling at our Q&A, along with one of the sitting board members and a board member's wife. They were shouting out at us at some points, trying to break decorum. When my wife read off the TEA's website what that report that was just released a couple months ago says about our district, the teachers yelled out, "Well, what's the national average?" And excuse me, I don't care how I compare with North Dakota.
Right.
Right?
I'm trying to figure out what my child in my home and the education that my property taxes go to.
My taxes are going to this school district, and my senior is exceptional. Side note, he's the Corps commander of the ROTC unit.
Very good.
He just got rejected from both Air Force and Naval Academy, but he had nominations to both. He is one of 14 recipients statewide for the Naval ROTC Marine Corps option, full ride scholarship to any college that has a program. And he's been accepted to Vanderbilt, where he just committed, and he's going to go there on a full ride scholarship.
Congratulations to him.
Right?
That is amazing.
That's
Now,
beautiful.
He's in the top 5% of his class. So I'm going to tell you from experience, our kids can get there.
Yeah.
Every kid is capable. But what we learned by putting my son in these competitions, I mean, that's what all these nomination processes and applications are, is a competition. We learned how he measures up with students nationwide. So I don't think they want to talk about national averages because it's not great when you're at 459 here in the state.
Yeah.
Right. But we believe that we can close those. My wife actually was a former educator, and she worked at a top 20 school district here in the state of Texas. She outperformed everybody year over year on the STAR test in her classes. And so they started loading her up with special ed students, SPED students, right? Which is the tactic of the institution, where if you have somebody who's excelling, you weigh them down with people that are not excelling, and then it averages out and it covers their tracks. Well, she started taking kids that were SPED students and outscoring regular students with them. All right? So they asked her to come be a part of the curriculum team and develop curriculum. And so she started taking the strategies that they had in her department, where they built everything from scratch and implemented it district-wide. And that was a district that was probably at like a 94% on the ratings, and they were trying to get to 100. Now, again, I'm going to go back. I'm showing my age a little bit. Rush Limbaugh, he always bragged about being 98% correct all the time, or 97.8, whatever it was. Said, you know how hard it is to improve from that. But you have to be perfect so long to move that needle. So for a school district to be at 94 and expect to see improvement is really aggressive. But I will tell you, in our region, there are school districts that are doing it. And if one man can do it, so can another.
So can another.
Right. So we know that it's possible. We know that there's the capability of it. We know our kids aren't dumb. I mean, we do know that we're a Title I district. I mean, most districts around here are, but like 68% of our kids are impoverished in Waller ISD. There's a huge English as a second language community. You know, nothing wrong with that, just statistics. Traditionally, those are excuses for low performance, but we don't buy that. My wife actually comes from a migrant farming community, and her dad is one of 11 kids, and she excelled in school, right? So there are barriers, but we can overcome those with some focus. And my wife has the experience in that, and that's why when she's running, she wants to point to that experience, and she wants to uplift our district. But it's hard. And those teachers don't understand necessarily with our phrasing that just because there's a deficiency doesn't mean you're a failure. It means we have room for improvement. So let's buckle up and get after it.
Yep.
Right? But that would be assuming that our goal is the education of our children. If that's not what our goal is, then that's not the logical conclusion.
Yeah.
Right? But those numbers are nuts. And if you looked at another one, it talks about algebra. Like 28% of our kids can do algebra on level, right? And I know that what did you say your major was?
Political science.
Yeah, poli-sci major is not going to be super into algebra, but I was
had to be in algebra when I graduated.
Good job. I was an oil field guy. I worked in the oil field from the ground up. Math was money. If you could do the math, you can make all the money, right? Engineers, they make pretty good money. If you can do math, you can make pretty good money. 28% of our kids can do algebra on grade level.
And algebra is like the easy stuff too.
Yeah.
It's like at most you have to put a few letters in, and
That's
it's
find X, right? I can find X.
But, you know, I don't want people to hear those numbers and be like, oh, you suck. Because what it means is we're struggling.
We're struggling, yeah.
And everyone that struggles can overcome something. And we believe we can do that. And that's why we need a little bit of different perspective. And that's why my wife, one of the things that she's running on is that she wants to bring that in and implement new strategies to close those gaps.
Do the parents of the district know these numbers?
Well, they do right now because I got a mailer that just hit. At least the conservative ones that vote in Republican primaries. Now, that doesn't mean they're Republicans, but the people that vote in Republican primaries,
They know the numbers.
they now know the numbers because they're going to check their mail today, and it's on there. Yeah.
It baffles me, and no one wants to take accountability for it. That's just how they operate. But when someone's been there for 30 years,
36. Yeah.
36 years, and that's not the only trustee on the board.
No.
There's other trustees on that board that's been there, right? I look at them and I go, what are you doing?
Yeah.
What is your job? What is your purpose of being there? You've been there for 36 years and we're not seeing any improvement. If anything, we're seeing a decline. What is your true purpose of wanting to serve as a trustee?
Yeah. Let me ask you, how many school board member candidates have you brought in here and interviewed?
You're the first one. You're the
wow.
first.
Well, if you talk to them, they're all going to tell you why they're running, why they want to be in that position. Now, what you just said, 36 years. Why? What's your purpose? Do you have a flag that you're flying? It's like,
Yeah.
hey, I want to improve this.
No.
No. The purpose is everything's amazing, and this is my seat.
Yeah. It looks good on the resume.
Yep.
You want the title.
Does the resume even matter at
It's
that point if you're going to
75.
die in office?
Yeah.
It's the title. Like you said, he's the deacon at the church. Everyone loves him. Go give your kids here. Also, he's a trustee on our school board.
Yeah. He's only missed 2 meetings in 36 years.
Well,
Now that is impressive. What are you doing while you're there? I don't know because the numbers are showing you're taking a nap during the meeting because you're just there, present, and then you sit there in silence because you're there, but are you doing something, right? So,
Yeah.
great for you, good attendance.
Let me tell you, I talked to a librarian that's about to retire,
Mm-hmm.
and she said she's not very happy that my wife is running because at some point we made us think about some wildly inappropriate books that my son was given in class. Ultimately, the Attorney General sat down with us and he was like, look, I want to help out, but until you change the penal code, nothing I can do about that. He said, but if you want to see change the penal code. So for several sessions in a row, we've been working on changing that. We thought it might get done this session, but I think we're about to run out of time. Different story. But librarians, they really are upset because we made their life hard because we said, hey, maybe we shouldn't show sexual content to children.
that's such a novel idea. Never heard that
That's
before.
brave, right?
Yep.
And so,
How dare you?
right, yeah. And so they're mad at us and calling us names, and that's okay. But she said, what does your wife think that she's going to accomplish as one vote on the school board? I said, well, that's a valid point. I'm glad you brought that up because, number one, it sounds like you think she's going to win. And number two, one vote versus 6 votes loses every time. Unless it's 1 vote plus 5,000 people that turned out in a race that's never seen 1,500, right? And she was just looking at me in shock, and I said, I don't know why you're scared. She's only 1 vote.
1 vote beat the 38 last time.
Yeah. And then she said, well, what does the school board actually do? And I said, you're about to retire from education. You've been a librarian your whole life. You don't know what a school board does. And she said, all they do is what the district tells them to do. The district makes recommendations, and the school board approves them. The district tells them who to hire and presents the contract, and the board approves it. She said, in 18 years, I've never seen them turn one of our recommendations down until y'all showed up. I said, okay. She said, and that was the only one. They just vote for whatever we tell them to. So the superintendent she said the superintendent sets the meetings and the agendas, and then they just vote for everything the way that the district tells them. And I said, I have never met anyone who made a case better for my wife's campaign
Than you.
than you.
Than you,
You just summed up the problem.
Yeah.
The problem is that our board doesn't know what they do. None of the staff really knows what the school board is supposed to be doing. And they've abdicated their authority to other people, and they're not working as an executive branch. We have no leadership. And that's what we intend to change. And she said, well, how are you going to do that? I said, well, The best thing that can happen is get my wife on that board and then have the other 6 members look at her and say, you think you can do better? Show me. Because I will. My wife will throw down right now in a heartbeat. She'll say, yeah, I can do that. First thing we're going to do is we're going to establish all these new policies that are working in other districts that we have precedent. Second, let's get rid of our taxpayer-funded lobbying because we have a $7 million deficit, and we don't need to be farming our taxpayer money that we could be using to educate our children to organizations that are actively working against their parents.
Yeah.
Right? And then third, why don't we protect our teachers? And one of the things that we all agree on is that the sexualization of children is not a good thing.
Not at all.
And it's been very evident in school districts that's been taking place with different kinds of books and curriculum. I pointed out some version of it in a health textbook just a second ago.
Yeah.
But did you know that the State Board of Education Certificate, SBEC, they're the licensing organization at the TEA that establishes the license of every teacher in the state of Texas. They have a code of ethics. And the last line of that code of ethics, along with 14 other things, says that they are prohibited from having a conversation about sexual preferences with students. Now, I happen to be a person that believes in equal rights. I think that we're all created equal in God's image.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's some stuff in the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence about all that. I stand for all those things. And so, that's where I come from. But I would point out that what's the difference between a member of LGBTQA plus whatever community and a straight white guy? Preference, right? Sexual preference. I've never been in public and asked somebody what that preference is for them. And I'm 40 years old. I've never had a conversation that went that way. But I've had a lot of people that told me their preferences. But school teachers shouldn't be having those conversations because it violates their code of ethics. And if you violate that code of ethics and someone reports that, you can lose your certificate. So from my perspective, one of the policies that every school should be adopting is that we're going to enforce the code of ethics for your certificate. And we're going to protect teachers by prohibiting conversations in the classroom regarding sexual preferences.
Yeah. So, genuine question then, how would that impact like GSA clubs on campuses?
Well, it would make it challenging because you have to have a school sponsor.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right? And if you can, I would be very interested to see how a school sponsor is able to facilitate conversation around that subject without having a conversation about sexual preference.
Yep.
Me and Brian can both be testaments. Me and him are both responsible for dismantling the GSA
at our respective schools.
I did it through a CSU, Christian Student Union, and we kind of was like, hey, guys, not on my campus.
Yeah.
Brian had his way of doing it. And so we're very big proponents of, taking that out of the school.
Yeah, it has no place there.
No school, no place.
If we're like, come on, if we're barely like halfway mark of like math and reading.
You can barely write your name.
So why are these people spending time talking about?
Why did teachers come out to protest us and yell at us when our scores are like that?
Right.
Yep.
You need to be reading a book to figure out if they can read that book.
And yet we have this. We have a club in our school district. Now, they don't show up on any of the club listings on the school district website. But they did, a year ago, hang a trans flag for Unity Day on the stairwell at the high school. And, I'm wearing cowboy boots and jeans, right? I drove a pickup truck in here. I live out in the country. We're talking about Waller ISD. I mean, even the students in Prairie View got cowboy hats. Right. And so there's a culture out there, and you wouldn't think that culture would be BFFs with that community. But it turns out that a lot of the teachers are. And that's okay. I mean, you can have freedom of speech. You can do what you want. That's fine. The problem is I'm concerned that the livelihood of these teachers is going to be at risk once a parent figures out that they're advancing something that's prohibited by the state.
How do the students react when like?
I mean,
that's in
yeah,
school?
really, because I would have taken.
Because I know what
I would have
happened
taken
in-
the suspension.
I know
Like, I
what
would've been
happened
like-
at my school. So at my school, there's like, every Christmas they'd have like every organization be able to decorate a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
And the GSA put up a Christmas tree, but instead of using like Christmas bulbs, they used LGBTQ flags.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you within 3 days, every single flag that was in that tree was gone, and they had a blank tree.
Yeah.
And no one knows what happened to those flags. And it happened before I could even get to it. So if you're watching this, it was not me. I wanted to. I didn't do it because somebody did it before I could. So, God bless you.
Yeah, no, I think they had to ultimately take down the banner, the flag, because students kept walking by the stairwell and taking the tape off.
Yeah,
And
like I said, I would have
There
taken.
it is. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
like,
I would have done it.
'cause I know my generation, and the men of my generation are becoming more conservative. The men of my generation, it's a conservative wave going through to where it's like, wait a minute, we're not gonna do it. We're not gonna do it. Like you said, I wear my buckle, I wear my boots, I wear my cowboy hat. That's what I do, right? And I grew up in an area, that's what we do. And so the GSA didn't even last a semester. It didn't last a semester.
Hey,
And the librarian left. Like she
you
ran off.
deserve to have a club if you want to have a club.
Right.
But I just think you need to follow the rules.
Yeah.
Law and order, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when, the public comes against you, are you going to stand on that club or are you going to
Yeah.
crumble?
Well, the school district stands on it. We complained about some safe space stickers that are on classroom doors that talk about being an ally and recognize that this space is safe for kids of all different identities, which we all know does not encompass all identities. That only encompasses some,
Right.
because the rest of them are hated. But when we complained about that, our complaint was the teacher has a right to free speech.
Mhm.
And if that was a sign that was on their desk, that would be one thing. But it's an applique that was adhesed to a taxpayer-funded door.
Yeah.
They don't have a right to post posters and advertise their personal agendas on school property.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Your backpack can have a keychain on it.
Mm-hmm.
You can wear a T-shirt that says something if it's appropriate. But we don't believe that you should mount your opinions and your advertisements on school property.
Yeah.
Because now it's the school making a statement. And we were told no, that we're out of line. If we weren't in that classroom, didn't physically see it, then we really don't have any standing. And that any student that did have a complaint with that should come forward. And I was like, yeah, right. Like a student's going to come forward and talk to y'all in good faith and think that you're going to handle this appropriately. I don't think so. All you're going to end up doing is just leaking their name out and having people bully them.
Yeah.
I mean, personally, I would still do it.
We're 16 minutes over. I'm not gonna lie to you. But,
Yeah.
but
Oh, man.
no. One of my favorite reading teachers was someone who was very far liberal, very far left. She knew exactly what my political views were.
Yeah.
I've never tried to hide my political views. I'll walk
Sure.
in with the MAGA hat. I'll walk in with the Trump shirt.
That's how society should work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And she had a keychain. This was a white teacher. And she had a keychain with the Black Lives Matter keychain on. That's...
Good for her.
And we'd walk in. She was my favorite. She was one of my favorite reading teachers. I have two favorite reading teachers that I really know off the top of my head. One was a Republican like me. The other one was a Democrat. They're my two favorite. Why? Because that liberal teacher, as much as she disagreed with my views, as much as she disagreed with my values, I was treated just as every other student in that classroom was.
What a great teacher.
There was, she had the Black Lives Matter, necklace or whatever, and her personal thoughts on her thing, just as I did. But when it came to the curriculum, when it came to that lesson, when it came to teaching, it wasn't about the politics.
Yeah, we're people first.
It was people first. She truly, when it was more so focused on this is that. Now, of course, being who I am, after, class or whatnot, I'd come over and, we kind of talk about politics. It always stayed respectful. And we dove in, not on just the it was, let's look at the statistics. Let's look at the facts. Let's look at all of this, right? And she approached that just like a teacher would.
Yeah.
And we would sit down, here's my view, and we could find middle ground on everything. There was always a middle ground. It was, if that's what a teacher wants to do, go for it. I have no problem with that. because that was truly a quote unquote safe space. If you really want to say what is a safe space, that's one where two people who disagree can sit down, show their disagreements, laugh about it, move on the next day, and they're best friends.
That's right.
I had that. I had another teacher, she was Republican, conservative, but when it came to that lesson, there were people in the class that didn't agree with my politics, didn't agree with her politics, but you didn't know it.
Yeah.
Because when it came to the lesson, it was what was the lesson about today?
Stand in the middle, facilitate an intelligent conversation on both sides.
As a teacher. Mm-hmm. And then after class, of course, me and her made her have some political discussion, political dialogue, yada, yada, yada. And after that, we move on, right? Mm-hmm. Everyone knew my political views. I didn't hide it, right? Yeah. And so that's what the point of the Patriots Den is. Like you said, a student. I wish there were more students, though, who would stand up and go, what's happening in my school is not right. Don't be, what are you afraid of? They're going to throw your name out there for standing on truth? Do it. I wouldn't be sitting here right now with the Patriots Den that I started off in my room on my iMac at home with a blue screen behind me if I didn't have a student screen record one of my videos of me talking about my politics and sending it to my school and saying this guy should not be the president of our academy. My school removed me as president of the academy and said I had to sit down for 2 years. I came back and I ran an election against 3 people. I won that election with 78% of the vote, according to the school body. Why? Because at the end of the day, truth will always prevail. I don't care how many people are against you. I don't care how. The Bible tells us the persecuted are blessed. So as long as we continue to be silent and scared within our right, the Patriots Den, people ask me, where did the Patriots Den come from? It comes from Daniel and the Lion's Den. Because Daniel had the courage that no matter what the king said, he was going to do what he believed in. And what did that mean? That mean they threw him in the Lion's Den. And when they threw him in the Lion's Den, did Daniel get scared? No, he made the Lion's Den his home, according to Scripture. That's what we got to do. We have to make the den our home, and that's what the Patriots Den is. We're making the den our home. It's no longer the Lion's Den anymore. No, this is the Patriots Den. We run this now. Yeah. We run our persecution. You know what? Yeah, I'll wear it proudly. I'll wear it. Whatever you want to call me that, because at the end of the day, I know if we go toe-to-toe, line for line, I love football. You can talk all that. I just won my championship yesterday, 7-on-7. And the team we beat, they talked a lot of mess. Oh boy. First round, this isn't even the championship game. And they sit there and they say, you sure you don't want an easy win first round? We'll see you in the championships. I said, no, don't change the bracket. Come on. You talk a lot. Meet me at that line. They scored first. They got a defensive stop. They're up 7. Oh! When the timer hit 0, who won that game? Because I knew who my team was. I had faith in my team. I had faith in what we worked on. I had faith in our execution. And I knew, in the beginning it didn't look good. But when halftime hit, we were up by 1. We got the ball back and we scored again. Tim Walz said it best. It doesn't look good now. We're down by 3. It's the 4th quarter, but we got the ball. Unfortunately for Tim Walz, they threw a pick. But my team, we didn't, right? And so I wish that students would get active and say, you know what? Who cares what someone may say to me? I got to do this, because if we don't do it now, our future is at hand. Anyone else looks at someone who's a 36-year incumbent and that says, I don't know if I want to do that. Then you add someone else into the race who is going to Prairie View, and that is a voter base. That has some pretty influential stuff over there. But your wife is pulling a David with Goliath right now.
Yes, she is.
She is pulling a David with Goliath, which means I feel like it is only right for me to do what I'm about to do, because I tell people all the time, I'm very picky about who I can support. I'm very picky about who I can, give. Like I said, you're the first school board member that we've had on here.
Hey, thank you very much.
But a very dear friend of mine reached out to me and said, you got to get this person on. And I know how they said, listen, we know how you are. And people know that I'm very quick to say no. I'm very quick to say, I like that person, but well, whatever. But I want to just make my this right here. I, Patrick Pruitt, the host of the Patriots Den, talk about it all the time. If you're going to talk about it, be about it. Give your money to those who support you. Give your money to those who are going to push your values, right? Make the difference as much as you can. Uplift those who can. So what am I going to do here? I, Patrick Prudhomme of the Patriots Den, proudly, humbly, fully endorse Cassandra Posey for the Waller ISD trustee position. She is going to be the Daniel and Lions in its position 3. We all know I love my 3s. Position 3. She is going to be the Daniel in the Lions Den. She's going to be that David versus Goliath, and I wish her nothing but the absolute best of success when she wins, because she's going to win. That's what we're going to put that in the air now. She's going to win.
Amen.
And when she wins, I want that. I wish I could see that librarian so I could say, you see what that one vote just did?
That's right.
The one vote looked bad against the 38. That's nice. The one vote looked bad against the 15. That's nice. But we all know what Cassandra was able to do with that one vote then. She's going to be able to do the exact same thing when she gets on the school board. And hopefully that ignites a fire in Waller. It ignites a fire in Waller that they go, wait a minute. If she could have done it, someone else can do it. And you go in, and it sounds like to me, if half the district can't read, it sounds like you need to wipe that trustee board clean. Personal opinion. Some people may disagree, but hey, half your students can't read. Something's got to give. Something's got to change. So you cannot sit here and tell me that someone that's been sitting on the board for 30-something odd years knows what they're doing, because clearly you don't. You've been there for 30 years, and the best you can give me is 54% of the kids can't read? Don't give me that, please. Please. My dog, he's dead. He can read better than that. he's ashes on a dresser somewhere. So stop it. Don't give me that. So right now, it is important. It is vital for parents, get out and vote. Amen. Because your kid's future is on the line. You can say how much you love your child. You can post about their accomplishments on Facebook. Wonderful, great, good for you. But what are you doing to make sure that how proud you are and how much you want them to succeed? How much of that are you actually doing to make sure that it becomes reality? How much of that are you doing to actually make it come true? How do you start voting in school board elections? Simple as that. Brian?
Yeah, no. I mean, likewise, I endorse the candidate as well. You know, I've met her. This is my second time meeting her. Both times have been very pleasant. She seemed very knowledgeable about what she wants to do when she gets elected. So, you know, I'm really looking forward to see what will happen when she wins, because it's not if, it's a when.
It's a win. It's a win.
So really, you know, I'm just looking forward to it. You know, well, best part is we won't have to wait a few months like usual.
Right.
We'll get to know in 2 weeks.
That's right. 2 weeks.
2 weeks. I may have to come to Waller, man.
Road trip?
Waller. We might have to make a Waller trip. We may have to
Actually,
make a Waller trip. I know
2 weeks
people,
from now, that's finals week. We go do a little trip.
We can make a trip. I know some people in Waller. We can come out to Waller and host an event, election watch party. You let us know what y'all want to do, and we'll come out there and let's make this thing happen. Because if you want to win, you got to be about it. You got to have boots on the ground. You got to do something to win. You got to do something to win. And let's get some information. Let's get some flyers out. Get some flyers out. Let's get some stuff going. And we'll help on this campaign in the best way we can, because
rock on.
Elections, what, Saturday?
Yeah, next Saturday, May 3rd.
Next Saturday, May 3rd, folks. May 3rd. So we just got a little time, but that's all you need.
Early voting through the 29th.
That's all you need. As I said in the 2024 election, tell your cousins, tell your in-laws, tell your granny, tell your neighbors, tell everybody that you know, get out and vote. If he knocks on your door to tell you to go vote, you know what your next thing is? You go to your phone, because you're on it anyway, and you go, guys, someone just came to my door and said there's an election. Did you know about it? You make his job a little bit easier, but you also save your district, folks. You also save your district, folks. Thank you so much for tuning into the Patriots Den. I know we're 27 minutes over. So, folks, thank you so much for tuning into the Patriots Den. I'm your host, Patrick Prudhomme. Here with me is Brian Fuentes, my amazing, my wonderful, extraordinary co-host, Josh Posey. We thank you so much. Nothing but success for your wife here in the Waller ISD trustee position 3 election. Guys, we're going to get out here and we got to win this. We got a country to save. Amen. We got a country to save. Folks, brought to you by Radiodabang and Micron Protection. Thank you so much, Justin. Folks, we'll see you here next week on Thursday with a guest. And it's the 100-day spectacular, so I hope y'all are ready for that. We're going to bring kazoos out and we're going to have a live orchestra and everything. It's going to be so great. So great. If you don't believe it, then, you know, you don't have to believe it. Tune in next week and it'll be a kazoo orchestra standing right behind me, I promise. Guaranteed. Guaranteed from the Patriots. And folks, Have a wonderful rest of your Thursday. And if you're in Waller ISD, go ahead, look at your calendar now. Make a plan to vote. Make a plan to vote. If you don't remember the times to go vote, you can go back earlier in the video. He said it. He said, you want to say one more time before we get out of here?
Waller County 8 to 5 and Harris County 7 to 7 through the 29th.
There it is, folks. Get out and vote. Make a plan to vote. Make sure you grab someone and you go to the polls with them. So that way, that's 2 votes. Thank you very much. Folks, we will see you all next week. This was the Patriots Den.